The biggest question about SpaceX's Starship program isn't exactly how it will get to space, but how the company plans to refuel the biggest spaceship ever built once it reaches orbit. There are no filling stations in space, and the journey to Mars is far, so definitely whatever means of transport will need refueling. But how will that work, especially for a huge rocket like Starship? Well, that is what we're about to show you in this video. But before we get into it, we would appreciate it if you supported the channel by hitting the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. We always upload quality, factual, and informative videos every week to keep you informed about everything happening all over the world. So subscribe and stay subscribed. Thank you. For Starship to even have a chance of pulling off this huge task, SpaceX will have to build the most easily and quickly reusable rocket and spaceship in history. It will also have to figure out how to refuel in orbit. SpaceX's official talks about orbital refueling can be summed up in one line: propellant settled by milli-G acceleration using control thrusters. This sentence was used in CEO Elon Musk's Starship presentations in 2017, 2018, and 2019. At first glance, that simple sentence doesn't seem to tell us much. But if you take what the company's CEO has and hasn't said with a grain of salt, and look at the history of study into orbital propellant transfer, you can get a pretty good idea of how SpaceX will probably refuel starships in space. Ironically, the key piece and answer can be found in a paper called Settled Cryogenic Propellant Transfer, which was written by 7 Lockheed Martin workers and a NASA engineer in 2006. Aside from the clear connections that can be drawn from the title alone, the paper is mostly about what the authors say is the simplest way to get large amounts of propellant from orbit to the ground. In orbit, where there is very little gravity, called microgravity, the fuel in a spaceship's tanks is separated from the structure. If a spaceship uses thrust, the propellant will stay still until it hits the tank walls. This is the most basic Newton principle, which says that things at rest tend to stay at rest. For example, if a spaceship thrusts in one direction and then opens a hatch or valve on the tank in the opposite direction of that thrust, the propellant inside it will naturally flow out of that opening because it wants to stay still. So to put that into action, if a ship that needs fuel docks with a tanker, their tanks are linked and opened, and the tanker tries to move away from the ship that needs fuel, the propellant in the tanker's tanks will push into the ship that is trying to stay still. And through that way, the rocket gets fuel for its travel. Basically, a tanker, loaded with liquid methane and oxygen, will dock with the rocket that needs to be refueled. Then they will fire their thrusters to create a gentle acceleration so that the tanker is up and the other one is down. We think they are still trying to decide if the propellants can just flow from one to the other, like pouring water from a cup to another cup, or if they will need to be pumped. Anyway, since it will require multiple tankers full of propellants to fully refuel a Starship, they are also looking at building large depots in orbit. The tankers can go up one at a time and fill the depot, and then the Starship requiring fuel can dock with it and refuel all at once. The ideas behind a settled propellant transfer are pretty easy to understand, but the most important question is how fast the process needs to go, and how much that constant speeding up ends up costing. According to a 2006 paper by Cutter et al., if a pair of 100 metric ton spacecraft accelerates at 0.0001 g, 1/10,000th of Earth gravity, to transfer propellant, they would only need to use 45 kilograms of hydrogen and oxygen propellant per hour to keep that acceleration. SpaceX shouldn't have any trouble moving more than 1,000 tons of propellant in a few hours if the pipes linking each Starship's tanks are about 20 to 50 centimeters in diameter. In the end, this means that a stable propellant transfer, even on the scale of a Starship, shouldn't cost more than 20-50 tons of propellant per refueling in terms of performance. All the transfers that lead up to the worst-case situation of 1,600 tons should also be much more efficient. Overall, this means that refueling a Starship or depot in orbit with about 1,200 tons of fuel, which could take anywhere from 8 to 14 or more tanker launches, should be surprisingly efficient, with maybe 80% or more of the fuel launched still useful at the end of the process. If all these happen as planned, it will become a game-changing process that revolutionizes space travel. That's all we have for you today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel, and also the like button, so we know you loved it and can continue producing videos like this. Also, hit the little bell so you get notified with new updated videos just like this. Thank you for watching. Till next time.